Hi guys, it's me, Demetria Rutledge, your community NP. Today I'm talking about being a locum. So I'm working a contract in California and I'm working for an FQHC. When you work for an FQHC, sometimes before you come in, they'll say something astronomical like you have to see 30 patients a day. And usually that is not literally 30 patients a day, although they schedule for 30 patients a day, because they have a high no-show rate, because some of the population that they serve are underprivileged and or you're underfunded, or sometimes some of the clients who lack some medical knowledge and they are become ambivalent to care. So anyway, I work this time I'm working with Earl Staffing. So basically, you go in, you sign your contracts, they give you a specific amount that you can spend for housing, a specific amount you can spend for your car rental, and a specific amount you can spend for your flight. Everything outside of that falls on you. So in California, sometimes you'll get these price points like $150 an hour, and it sounds great. You're like, what the heck? And you're like, yeah, sign me up. But with that $150, usually that indicates that they're either going to give you stipends for your lodging and your car rental, and they add that into the price because they give you that much money so you can offset the cost that you'll have to pay for your tickets. Okay. So that's number one. So sometimes if you see a California job that's like $95 or $100 an hour, usually they're going to pay for everything. And that's just the truth. The further you get into the foothills or into areas that are underserved, the higher your pay will be if you're not specialized. If you specialize, then you'll get more money. All right. So you need to start building your resume, building your knowledge base. Okay. So, what do you ask before you get ready to start working at a FQHC? You want to know how much of support staff do they have? Do they have front office support staff? How many medical assistants will you have? What is the coverage? I mean, if you're going to have to cover other providers or if you're going to be on-call covering. The on-call covering is very important because you want to make sure that you make them pay what you're worth if they're going to put you on call. Okay, don't just go by the regular $100 an hour or regular $150 an hour. You need to add a little bit more coins onto that if you're going to be on call. All right. That's very important. So make sure that you stand up for yourself in relationship to that. And if you have a good recruiter, they'll make sure that you take care of that as well. And that's going to be added into your contract. You want to know if you're going to be working 5 days a week or 4 10s or 3 12s. You want to know if you're going to be working on the weekends. If you're going to be working on the weekends or holidays, you want to make sure you add that cost into your hourly amount or into your contract, that they pay you what you're worth to be able to work on the weekends. If you're working callback, and more importantly, if you're working on the holiday, especially Christmas. Okay, Christmas and Thanksgiving Day are very high ticket items that if you want to work those days, that you make sure that you're paid for that. Building your notes. So the top EMRs are usually going to be Cerner and Epic. Okay. So with Cerner, you want to make sure that you have your dot phrases. And with Epic, you want to make sure that you have your dot phrases. Cerner is a little bit more easier to learn. However, with my experience, Epic has a lot more bells and whistles. It can do a lot more than Cerner. But if you do not have your dot codes and a workflow on how you want to have your screen set up and you're not familiar with it, you're going to have some challenges, especially if you're working for FQHC, because by the time they ramp up your schedule, you're going to go in one day and have 10 patients, and the 3 days later, you're going to be at 25. So you won't have time. And if you don't have a good support staff, you more than likely will drown. Okay. And a lot of people where you work are not going to be handing you a life vest. And I'm just putting it out there and telling you the truth. Okay. So what do I have? Someone else asked me a question about pay and how do I do that? Well, I have an LLC and I created my own LLC as a sole proprietor, S Corp. And what I do is I have an accountant and I actually have an HR payroll system. So I pay myself actually on payroll. I do not pay myself the amount that I make per hour at the jobs that I have. I work with my CPA. She looks at my tax bracket and tells me how much I should pay myself an hour so I'm not, hit with a gazillion dollars at the end of the year. Because we all know, unless you're rich, and I mean top rich, the government will rob and pull out every penny that they can get from you, because your middle class or your upper middle class hurts more related to taxes. And that's just my opinion. It may not be true for everybody, but that's my opinion, because my taxes are ridiculous. All right. But I have an awesome CPA and I trust her with everything. So having that LLC works really, really well. And so you get your EIN number, and that offers you a lot more. So you're not paying for everything through your own social. So I file a personal and business tax return. Insurances. So I have insurance. I have malpractice insurance. When I work for anyone, they offer malpractice insurance as well. But I also have my own personal malpractice insurance. And you want to make sure you have that, because you just never know. Because trust and believe, I have worked with so many people that have been called out for something and they're part of a lawsuit. And if you go against anything on that policy and you work outside on your own, or you do something to try to cut corners and you go outside that policy, their malpractice insurance is not covering you. Okay. I learned that from a good dear friend of mine, and she ended up paying out a lot of money and getting judgments and everything. And I don't want that kind of smoke. So basically what I would tell you is to make sure that you talk to a legal counsel and make sure that you have enough malpractice insurance to cover yourself so you can go ahead and live a good life. Okay. It's not like you're trying to go out and hurt somebody or cause an issue, but you want to make sure that you're prepared and you're ready just in case something happens, so the bottom doesn't fall out on you. Another thing to do is to make sure that when you have your LLC, during the times that you're going to be off from work, that you have a set aside. So when you have a set aside, that means that when you're not working, that you can still continue to pay yourself. Kind of like paying your own self PTO, except you can take out as much time as you'd like. All right. That's the benefit of working locum, when you make so much that you can carve some of that money out to do set asides to have something like your own paid time off. Medical insurance. If anybody out there is listening to this, or you've gotten into this video and you're still watching, if you know how I can have a cheaper medical insurance that's not going to have a high deductible, hit me up in the comments and let a sister know, okay? Because my insurance that I pay with Florida Blue is astronomical, all right? And I don't even go to the doctor that much. And listen, the cost of medical insurance in the United States is ridiculous. So if you know a different way, please let me know. Okay, I think that's all the questions that I had. So I'll see you guys later. Have a good day. Bye.